You are listening to Commission 6-8.
It is Thursday, September 26th, in the greatest country on earth. You are listening to Commission 6-8, and I'm your host, Randy Millette. Today, we'll be talking about censorship in the U.S. and abroad. I have a history lesson for you from West Virginia, and as always, we're going to see what the Bible has to say about it. So let's go! All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for listening. I have exciting news for the show. I would like to let everyone know that we have turned on the Text Us button. So wherever you get your podcast, you will see a button that says Text Us, and you will be able to reach out and give us feedback. If you like the show, let me know. If you don't like the show, let me know. If you have any suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, just text us, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Okay, I have a press release here from the House Judiciary Committee in Washington. This was released yesterday, September 23rd. The headline is, Google admits censorship under Biden, promises to end bans of YouTube accounts of thousands of Americans censored for political speech. This letter was sent to the House Judiciary Committee from Alphabet's counsel, Alphabet being the parent company of Google and YouTube. And it says, today, thanks to the oversight of Chairman Jim Jordan, Google commits to offer all creators previously kicked off YouTube due to political speech violations on topics such as COVID-19 and elections, an opportunity to return to the platform. Google also admitted the following. Number one, the Biden administration pressured Google to censor Americans and remove content that did not violate YouTube's policies. Number two, the Biden administration censorship pressure was unacceptable and wrong. Number three, public debate should never come at the expense of relying authorities. Number four, the company will never use third-party fact-checkers. And number five, Europe's censorship laws target American companies and threaten American speech, including the removal of lawful content. The release goes on to say that these major omissions came after Chairman Jordan's subpoena to Google and a years-long investigation into the company. So that is a huge win in the fight against censorship. Now, we had previously seen that Mark Zuckerberg from Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, had admitted that also during the same time period under the Biden administration, he was being pressured by the administration to censor political speech. So with these admissions, it's only confirming what we knew was happening all along. I want to play you a clip of Joe Scarborough in response to Jimmy Kimmel being taken off the air.
Well, and what some Republicans did seem to understand, Ted Cruz certainly understood it, that yes, right now this is being used against speech that Republicans don't like. But Willie, Republicans aren't going to be in the White House forever. So they understood. Ted Cruz warned about it. Others warned about it. What we're doing to them right now, they will do to us when a Democrat. This is short-sighted. It makes no sense.
So there you have Joe Scarborough warning the Republicans basically that once the Democrats are back in power, we're going to get you back. And as irony would have it, only hours after this aired and Joe Scarborough made this statement, the House Judiciary Committee published this letter from the lawyer of Alphabet admitting that they were doing the same thing under the Biden administration, being pressured by the Biden administration to do so. Now, another thing I want to point out is Google admitted in its statement here that Europe's censorship laws target American companies and threaten American speech, including the removal of lawful content. I'm going to play you another clip, this time of reporter Bev Turner's question to the Prime Minister of England during Trump's state visit. Listen.
Having been in DC for a few weeks, it's really interesting to see how you run the country as a proud Christian leader. And it really begs the question to the Prime Minister, if you don't mind, are we still a Christian country? But also...
when you say we, are you talking here or...
Here. The
here?
UK. I'm still British. I might live in America. I'm still British. But also...
I can't give you that answer.
That's for the Prime Minister. But also, despite what we talked about in Scotland a few weeks ago, we still have 12,000 people a year here being arrested for social media posts, for free speech violations. Does that not remain an important area that there is still a lot of disagreement on?
I'm not going to bore you with his answer because he basically avoided the heart of the question. And you can find the clip on social media. It hasn't been censored yet. But Bev Turner made a powerful statement in her question. She stated that over 12,000 people a year, that's over 1,000 people a month, are being arrested for social media posts, and in some cases, responding or even viewing certain social media posts. And this is taking place in the UK. I have a few examples here. A New York Post headline from August 19th says UK free speech crackdown sees up to 30 people a day arrested for petty offenses such as retweets and cartoons. An April 4th report in the Times revealed that the UK police make over 30 arrests per day for offensive online communications under vague laws criminalizing messages that cause annoyance, inconvenience, or anxiety. Over 12,000 such arrests occurred in 2023 alone, with civil liberties groups warning of a chilling effect on free speech. This is very unsettling. I'm not talking about North Korea or China or Russia or Saudi Arabia. We're talking about the United Kingdom. They're arresting over 12,000 people a year just for social media posts, in some cases viewing them or liking them. They're coming in and confiscating phones. And this is all happening in Great Britain. Now, we have not seen this level of arrests in the United States, thank God. And we're taking a step in the right direction under the Trump administration, especially with this latest admission by Alphabet and the previous admission by Meta. But the fact remains that censorship is a problem. And it's up to us to prevent this from happening in the United States. Now, social media has not been around that long, but censorship at its root is all about control. And big tech companies censoring its users, especially from political speech, is about control and trying to sway elections one way or another, or trying to place certain people in power. I'm going to tell you a story which is an example of censorship in the United States. Now, if you're familiar with U.S. history, and especially famous battles, you've probably heard of the Battle of Gettysburg, or the Battle of Antietam, or the Battle of New Orleans, or famous battles that have taken place. One battle that you've probably never heard of, and we're going to find out is due to censorship, is the Battle of Blair Mountain. After the break, we're going to look at how the biggest companies of the day, who had the most control, were able to censor history that took place right here in America's backyard. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Commission 6-8.
This episode is brought to you by Living Proof Church, a non-denominational, spirit-filled church in Araby, Louisiana. Services are held Sundays at 10 a.m. and live streamed on YouTube. Visit us at livingproof-church.com to plan your visit.
You are listening to Commission 6-8.
Our story today takes us to West Virginia in the early 1900s, where the commodity of the day was coal. And like any commodity, you have two sides that are tasked with producing it. On one hand, you have the coal companies. On the other hand, you have the coal workers. And due to working conditions in the early 1900s, we began to see labor unions largely begin to organize in many different fields, and coal was no different. Now, at a certain area of West Virginia, organization seemed almost impossible, and what became 2 decades worth of fighting to organize a labor union would eventually culminate in what would be known as the Coal Wars. So for a little context, if you were a coal miner in the early 1900s in West Virginia, you lived in a coal mining town, and the entire town was built and paid for and owned by the mining company. So the school that your kids went to, the church you attended, the hardware store you went to, even the house you lived in was owned by the mining company. In fact, up until a certain point, the miners weren't even paid in U.S. currency. They were given fake notes that were owned by the company, that were produced by the company, and could only be spent in company-owned mining towns. In fact, a key player around this time was a woman by the name of Mary Harris Jones, and they called her Mother Jones. And in her autobiography, she wrote, "Men who live up in those lonely creeks have only the mine owners' YMCAs, the mine owners' preachers and teachers, the mine owners' doctors and newspapers to look to for their ideas." So it was only a matter of time, and it was inevitable that eventually unions would be organized because this way of life would become unacceptable for the miners and their families. For the story of the Battle of Blair Mountain, I'm going to read to you this article from the National Park Service of West Virginia. The West Virginia Mine Wars was culminated in a massive march of Union miners through the coal towns of the southern counties. The participants ultimately sought to free miners in Mingo County who had been arrested and were being held in jail on charges of violating the martial law that the governor had imposed on the county. To get to Mingo, they first had to cross through Logan County. In late August 1921, the Union miners encamped in the town of Blair, just below Blair Mountain. Blair Mountain forms a long ridge line that the miners had to cross in order to reach Mingo County. Their first order of business was to deal with Don Chafin, a notorious sheriff of Logan County whose main job was to protect the coal mine operators' interests. By the time the armed marchers arrived in Blair, Chafin had assembled his own army of civilian recruits that were protecting positions along the Blair Mountain ridgeline. And it was on Blair Mountain where the two forces came face to face. On the night of August 30th, John Wilburn, a minister and a part-time miner, led a group of 70 miners up the mountain. During the patrol, Wilburn and 4 other men encountered 3 of Chafin's deputies, including John Gore, an infamous mine guard in Logan County. In the gun battle that ensued, the miners shot and wounded Gore, who then shot and killed miner Eli Kemp. Wilburn responded by shooting Gore in the head, ensuring that he was dead. This marked the beginning of the Battle of Blair Mountain, and for the next 3 days, the two sides battled with Gatling guns, rifles, and other firearms along the ridge of Blair Mountain. During the second day of fighting, Chafin ordered his men to fly airplanes over the encamped marchers and drop 2 nausea-inducing gas bombs and 2 bombs filled with gunpowder, nuts, and bolts. As historian James Green describes it, something extraordinary happened on Spruce Fork Ridge that day. American citizens were being subjected to aerial bombardment on their own soil. After several days of heavy fighting along the mountain ridge, the miners were ready to move into Logan County when the federal government stepped in, dispatching troops, planes, and munitions to the area. This intervention effectively ended the miners' march before they could enter into a full battle with Chafin's army. The miners willingly surrendered to the federal troops because they were not rebelling against the federal government, but rather against local and state governments that catered to mining interests to the extent of denying citizens their constitutional rights. In fact, miners viewed the intervention of the military as a victory, seeing it as a signal that the rule of law would return to the region. Even though they did not succeed in freeing the jailed miners in Mingo or ridding Logan County of its corrupt sheriff, the fighting of the West Virginia Mine Wars officially ended on September 4th, 1921. It is believed that over 100 people were killed on both sides of the conflict. With over 13,000 belligerents on either side, the Battle of Blair Mountain is considered the largest non-military battle in United States history. But due to the stranglehold of power by the coal companies and the unprecedented level of censorship, it is all but forgotten in American history. The New York Times published an opinion piece by Cassidy Rosenblum, who states that West Virginia's history and the Battle of Blair Mountain was censored. He says following the Battle of Blair Mountain, West Virginia kept any mention of labor conflict out of his textbook for more than 50 years, and in many schools, it is still absent. In the years following the Battle of Blair Mountain, West Virginia developed its state history textbook, and there were no mention of the battle or the Cold Wars or any uprising or labor disputes in West Virginia. In 1940, when West Virginia developed a state guide, it was decided to leave all mention of the Miners' March and the Battle of Blair Mountain out of the encyclopedia and out of the guide because it was considered to be in bad taste. It is only recently that this story has been rediscovered and more people are starting to find out what really happened in those days in West Virginia. And that is due to the intense censorship by the biggest companies of the day, which today would be the tech companies, but back then was the coal miners and the coal companies. And they decided to keep this history censored because they felt that it put them in a bad light. So when you read reports or hear things about the censorship going on in places like the UK or other places of the world and think that it can't happen here in the United States, the truth is that it already has. But it's up to us, it's up to you and me to hold the government accountable, keep our speech free, and keep our voices heard. But censorship isn't a new problem. It's been around for as long as people have craved power. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to show you in the Bible how they tried to censor the most powerful voice that ever existed. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Commission 6-8.
This episode is brought to you by Living Proof Church, a non-denominational, spirit-filled church in Araby, Louisiana. Services are held Sundays at 10 a.m. and live streamed on YouTube. Visit us at livingproof-church.com to plan your visit.
You are listening to Commission 6-8.
And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it is written, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering the sight of the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. That comes from Luke 4, verse 17 and 18. And the story here is that Jesus enters the synagogue in Galilee where all his friends and family are, and he sits down and reads from this scripture from the book of Isaiah, but he doesn't just read it, he speaks it and he prophesies it, which it is a prophecy, and he's prophesying over himself, and he's revealing to everyone there that he is the one that this prophecy was written for. And the powers that be could not stand this, and they did everything in their power to censor Jesus. In fact, after he read this, an argument between the Pharisees and Jesus broke out in the synagogue, and it got so heated that they rushed him out and tried to throw him off a cliff. And of course, Jesus didn't allow himself to be thrown off a cliff because he wasn't there to die from falling down a cliff. He was there to die on the cross for our sins, and he knew his mission. So he did not allow his voice to be censored. But if we look throughout Jesus' ministry, in 3 years, he changed the world. Now, last episode, we talked about the power of your voice, the power of our voice, the power that God gives us to speak and declare things into the spiritual atmosphere. Jesus walked around speaking and declaring things into the spirit world, and the powers that be felt threatened, and the only answer they had to that threat was censorship, all the way to the point where they killed him. We just saw last week, 2 weeks ago, that Charlie Kirk's voice got just too powerful. And the only way to censor him was to kill him. But what the shooter didn't know is that martyring someone does not silence their voice. I heard this quote 3 or 4 times during the memorial. When a tyrant dies, his voice is over. But when a martyr dies, his voice has just begun. Turning Point USA is exploding at the seams after the death of Charlie. His voice is ringing louder and louder, and many of you, some of you that are listening right now, have never even heard of Charlie Kirk or didn't hear any of his videos until after he was martyred. Jesus walked the earth for 3 years before he was killed, but in 3 years, he changed the world. If you have a voice and you have words worth speaking, be assured the censors are going to come after you. They're going to try to shut you up. They're going to try to censor you. They're going to try to keep your message from getting out, because that's what evil does. Evil tries to keep the truth suppressed. But the truth has the benefit of being true. And the word says that the truth will set you free. So rejoice when you were persecuted. Jesus told us, rejoice when you were persecuted for my name's sake. Because if you're being persecuted, or if they're trying to silence your voice, you have something worth saying. And I thank you guys for listening to me today. And again, I pray that you find your voice. I pray that you use it to further the kingdom of heaven. I pray blessings over you. I pray blessings over you and your family. I pray blessing over your coming in and your going out. I pray peace, power, and prosperity. And remember that you live in the greatest country on earth, and it's up to you to keep it.
This has been Commission 6-8.